When Chrysler stumbled during the recent recession, it had a major effect in central Indiana. Kokomo's unemployment rate topped 20% in June of 2009. That was the same month that the new Chrysler Group LLC was formed as a global strategic alliance with Fiat. Chrysler has made great strides in the 21 months since then. We have rejuvenated our product lineup with 2 brand new nameplates and bringing out 14 all-new or substantially refreshed vehicles, representing 75% of our portfolio. We met or exceeded all our upgraded forecasts for 2010, posting an operating profit of $763 million for the year. In the United States, we raised our market share from 8.8 to 9.2. We reckon that's with a pretty old lineup of vehicles. We recognize that we have a special obligation to the taxpayers of the United States and Canada for enabling a new, restructured company to be formed. And so we pursue our ambitious goals for the future. We are committed to operating with a strong sense of values that includes being a good neighbor and good citizens. As Chrysler establishes itself as a world-class competitor, our operations in Kokomo will play a crucial role in our long-term powertrain strategy. Last year, in May and June respectively, we announced investments totaling $343 million in our Kokomo facilities. Of that, $43 million has been used, quite frankly, to increase capacity in our Kokomo casting and Kokomo transmission plants as we adapt them to support production of a fuel-efficient 4-cylinder world gas engine and improve our processes for our 6-speed automatic transmission programs, all of which are in our new lineup and certainly are getting some positive feedback for their performance. Another $300 million was designated to prepare the Kokomo transmission plant for production of a highly efficient 8-speed automatic transmission for future Chrysler vehicles. On a special day on November 23rd, President Obama and Vice President Biden visited our Indiana transmission plant to greet workers and celebrate the comeback of the U.S. auto industry. In conjunction with that visit, Chrysler announced it would invest nearly $843 million in the plant to accommodate production of a new advanced front-wheel drive transmission for future Chrysler vehicles and help retain over 2,250 jobs. Since then, Chrysler has also confirmed that we will add another $83 million in additional powertrain improvements in Kokomo. That brings Chrysler's announced investments in the U.S. facilities to more than $3 billion U.S.-wide since June of 2009, coming out of bankruptcy. Of that total, $1.3 billion will go to our plants in Kokomo, helping to modernize them and make them capable of producing the more fuel-efficient powertrains that are demanded for the current and future automotive market. These investments represent a significant step toward transforming Chrysler Group into a stronger competitor, and they demonstrate our commitment to the Kokomo community and Indiana in general and our workforce. We look forward to continuing to build our relationships with the state of Indiana for the years to come.
You know, I was talking the other day about we've all witnessed some tough times here in Indiana over the past couple of years, and I'd say probably almost everybody in this audience has seen somebody struggle to even keep a job, or struggle to keep their home, or make their car payment, or even struggle to keep their families together. You know, we saw many of our friends and neighbors, many Hoosiers, worked hard all their lives. They've done the right thing. They went to work every day, did a job, performed a service for the company, did what they're supposed to, only to see what savings they put away, investments they put away for retirement, for their future dreams diminished by what happened over the last couple of years. But I'd say Hoosiers are resilient and historically bounce back from the toughest of times. This is apparent in Indiana, especially in manufacturing and the auto industry. In fact, it was recently reported over 200 companies nationally and overseas pledged to create over 23,000 jobs here in Indiana. This is more than any other year on record, according to the Indianapolis Star. The Star also reported, according to the Indiana Economic Development Corporation. These job commitments worth over $4.38 billion in capital investment, with auto-related manufacturing representing the largest sector of job commitments. In the area I represent, and I could talk about Kentucky and what's going on at Ford and Corvette and the cooperage we represent that builds all the oak whiskey barrels for Jim Beam and Jack Daniels, but I won't talk about that. I'll concentrate on Indiana. And then historically, when the economy is good, they build a lot more barrels in Kentucky. So I guess there's something relative there to that in Kentucky. We've seen, as Brian mentioned, Brian and I worked very hard together with this, and we appreciate all the help from Kokomo and Mayor Goodnight and the council in Kokomo and the representation we had in the state from Kokomo in helping us secure those investments. And I thank you personally for helping secure those investments for Kokomo. Again, that resulted in hiring off the street a brand new product, 8 and 9-speed transmissions, and not heard of. The fuel economy would be tremendous when these products built in Kokomo go in these cars. So it's a great future in Kokomo. But just a few other things that have gone on in my world. We were able to put an agreement together, resulted in a brand new plant in Lafayette, Indiana for TRW and new jobs hiring off the street. Production has been increased at my GM plant, and not mine, but plant I represent in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Over 940 jobs added at that plant and building those fine trucks. Millions of investments right here at Allison Transmission and Rolls-Royce. We've seen them hiring off the street. We've seen brand new innovative product coming out of both of those plants. And major investment in the General Motors plant in Bedford, which is going to bring a brand new product line, product they never produced before. It's going to result in 200 to 250 new jobs, which will start hiring those folks later on this year. But you'd ask, why Indiana? People are saying that in a lot of areas the economy is not recovering. Why Indiana? And some people might say, well, they're building more cars, so they're pumping more money into their own plants to increase volume, to deal with the capacity issue. And that may be true in some areas, but however, it wouldn't answer the question, why would a solar manufacturer decide to locate in Tipton County, Indiana? Or why would, as one of these team panelists here, why would a company that's on the leading edge of technology, in my opinion, this will be powering the cars that all of us in this room will be driving in some of our lifetimes, why would a company bring their battery production to Indiana? And even Honda, why would Honda build a plant in Indiana and not in the southern states where we see a lot of these foreign manufacturers build their plants? In my opinion, one of the major reasons companies come and invest in Indiana is because we have a very skilled workforce compared to a lot of states. Not only in manufacturing, but in life sciences industry, which, by the way, IDEC also reported that'll be the second largest sector of new growth here in Indiana. It was unfortunate that on the east side, when Ford made the decision to get out of the steering gear business, that resulted in a lot of skilled machinists that's been trained in the plants, being in the job pool of unemployed, but not for long. As a matter of fact, this was a benefit to both Rolls-Royce and Allison Transmission when they started hiring. These people could come in off the unemployment line and begin producing quality parts from day one. A significant savings for training dollars to these employers. When Navistar Engine closed their plant, we immediately partnered with Work One and the state, local leaders, and began training those laid-off workers, ever increasing their skills to re-enter the job market. This partnership has also evolved in a revitalization project for the east side of Indianapolis, which some of you are aware, led by Pure Power Technologies. Yes, this project's been embraced by the likes of Senator Richard Lugar, Congressman Andre Carson, and Mayor Greg Ballard. So to sum up, I believe manufacturing in the auto industry has a bright future in Indiana because working together, Hoosiers can and will, and they continue to show the world that Indiana is a winning team.
Thank you, Congressman Donnelly, for that kind introduction. As he said, I'm Catherine Boland. I'm Vice President of Legislative Affairs for Motor and Equipment Manufacturers Association. We represent the suppliers. And I'm here on behalf of MEMA and our Original Equipment Suppliers Association, which is our affiliate representing the light-duty original equipment suppliers. We have employees in all 50 states. We're in most congressional districts, and we represent, at least directly, a couple of years ago, we had 685,000 direct employees. Right now, we're around 400,000 nationwide. The past couple of years have been difficult, but things are turning around. As Mr. Donnelly said, we are on target for over 13 million vehicles produced in North America this year. That's up from 11 last year, and that's up from less than 10 2 years ago. Still down from our high of 17 million, but things are improving and things are looking up. Parts manufacturers are more than just the people who put together the parts. We account for roughly 30% of the research and development that goes into the motor vehicle industry, and about 70% of the added value when you drive your car off the lot came from suppliers. And also suppliers are continuing to take on a greater role in the design, testing, and engineering of new vehicle parts and systems. This is growing as we continue to partner with our customers, the vehicle manufacturers, to help develop the technology that makes cars and trucks safer, more fuel efficient, and cleaner as we move forward. Like I said, the industry is turning around. The global auto industry is now a growth industry. Last year, there was a record of roughly 71 million units produced worldwide. Some forecasts have put that to be 98 million units in 2017. And North America continues to be a significant portion of that. We have about 17% of the growing global production. And as I stated earlier, we're looking at about 13 million this year. But in order to keep growing and in order to keep the industry here in the U.S., we need to focus on growing our nation's economy and growing our nation's vehicle sales. Increasing sales brings production, production brings jobs, and it allows more suppliers and vehicle manufacturers to increase the workforce by hiring and rehiring workers. For suppliers, about 30% of the vehicle value is in play for offshoring. So we're going to continue to focus on keeping that component manufacturing here in North America. But this country needs to remain competitive to capture as much of that 30% and not let it move production overseas. One of the things that we can do to keep the industry competitive here in the U.S. is work with Congress on common sense incentives that will keep manufacturing here and also keep regulations reasonable to not send them overseas. On the good news front, the industry has broken its break-even point by 20 to 30% and is in a much better position to remain competitive than we were 3 years ago. That keeps jobs here in the U.S., and that also helps protect business from the next economic downturn and helps keep businesses protect their employees. The bad news, of course, is that we have seen a significant reduction in force, both here in Indiana and nationwide. The Federal Reserve of Chicago does estimate that the Midwest did take the largest hit, but that's because the Midwest is where the largest communities, or the largest production already was. The transition isn't over. Surveys of my membership indicate that about 18% of the capacity still needs to be rationalized out of the industry. But like I said, suppliers are hiring and rehiring workers. Another survey of membership, 60% of my members are looking to hire production and technical engineering staffs, and they're being very selective in hiring back general management. So they really are focused on the high production jobs, the R&D jobs, the jobs that are going to bring increased employment back to your communities. There are tremendous opportunities. One of the things suppliers are doing is looking to industry, government, academia partnerships to reinvest and reinvent the workforce, our product portfolios, plants, and equipment. Like I said, motor vehicle parts manufacturers rely on a balanced framework of laws and regulations in order to flourish and create jobs. Laws and regulations must provide appropriate and adequate incentives for hiring workers, conducting research and development activities, and manufacturing goods in cities and communities all across the nation. In closing, I'd like to share what we find exciting about the future. There are far fewer excuses this time. Our major vehicle manufacturers and suppliers have been restructured, some in bankruptcy, but most not. And we have more flexibility in our labor contracts, balance sheets, and supply chains than ever before. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak with you today, and I look forward to any questions.
Thank you very much, Representative Donnelly. I appreciate being here. I have a prepared statement that our New York office made, and I'd really like for you to grab one of these. I think it's a unique business model that we have. We're on the very cutting edge of huge success, and it's particularly kind of an honor for me to represent Inter1. And I'd like to tell you, excuse me, my personal story. I grew up in Speedway. The first my family to go to college, went to Purdue, joined GM, average job, kind of worked through the ranks. And in the early 1990s, I had an opportunity to move to a joint venture GM. I had a very large one in Korea, and I lived there for 5 years. After that, I joined MEMA International, worked for Tom Snyder, who is president of Ivy Tech and on our board of directors of Inter1, and a very vocal advocate for our company in this kind of industry. I joined MEMA International up the road here in Anderson. I became VP of their Asian operations, started a company in Korea, 3 in China, and 1 in India. I didn't start them, but I helped manage those. So I feel like I have a good perspective of what we've done to our manufacturing base in the U.S. In some ways, it's been pretty good. We get a lot of low-cost goods from overseas, very effective marketing opportunities in those countries. But the reality is we have kind of decimated our ability to make things. And being part of Inter1, we're going to make things. We're going to make them here. We also, to survive, we have a partnership we're starting in China, which I'll help look after. We have a company in Korea, which is a very good company. But the heart of our technology and our manufacturing base will be here. Through the support of a lot of government agencies, Governor Daniels, President Obama's stimulus activities, we're going to make batteries here. We have 300 employees, and I'd like to highlight a little bit about this company, but I'd rather not read it. I'm not as good at reading. So if you would, take one of these, and please think what we're trying to do here, and I think you'll react positively. This is a very good name for this panel. We're going to manufacture in Indiana. We're going to be here to win. That's our goal. We have a very dynamic leadership team. Many of you have probably heard of Charles Gassenheimer, who's helped put this together. Very young guy, 36 years old, very aggressive, very energetic, and I think a good leader and very positive about Indiana. We're a leading manufacturer of lithium-ion batteries, which is a new technology to power cars. The legacy, and one of the reasons we're here, stems from some GM battery development in Delphi years ago out here on the east side of Indianapolis. And, you know, it's kind of amazing. I don't know, maybe even as much as 30 years ago, this started and has grown, you know, just sat there and sort of evolved, and all of a sudden, poof, here we are. So I think it's an interesting story. We have 3 facilities, one on Hague Road along I-69, one in Noblesville, kind of an engineering test center, and we just have leased and are thinking of purchasing this year a facility in Mount Comfort Road in Greenfield, 800,000 square foot facility, huge place, and we hope to fill that up over the next 3 to 5 years. Our battery chemistries are very suited to the global markets. You know, everybody thinks of cars, and trucks are getting very active, the truck makers in this business. But one of the huge opportunities is what we call grid storage, which is the balancing the backup of power grids. And one of our majority owners is a Russian guy, and we have a huge opportunity with the federal Russian grid, almost more than even this 800,000 square foot of capacity can do. And we're going to start shipping batteries to Russia probably late 4th quarter for sure, early in the next year. We have some truck customers like Hyundai Heavy, an interesting story. For the G20, where President Obama and several people came, there's 3 major competitors there. 2 actually, Hyundai and Daewoo, but Hyundai Heavy and conduit fiber had trouble getting batteries to work. They stick our batteries in and make them work, and they're the only buses that are available for the G20 to haul all of the dignitaries around, and they're still running in Seoul, up and down Namsan Mountain in the middle of Korea. AC Transit in California. We're doing a project with Duke here locally for kind of an after service of batteries. Once you put batteries in a car, then they're exercised, used, charged, used, so on. They still have life after that in grid storage, so we have a project going there. We have some discussions going on, obviously, with Russia. We have some guys meeting in India today. We have one customer in particular for grid storage, and of course our China activity. We are ITAR certified, which means we can deal in military applications, and we have a plant in New Jersey who is buying small batteries, cell phone battery type size, from our Korea operation, putting them in a pack, and they're going to a company here in the U.S. that makes a good bit of the drones. If you've ever seen the deal where the soldier's out in the field, he's got a little panel, he's got a drone, he throws it off, and it flies around for 45 minutes or whatever, and he's got a screen, and he's taking pictures of the enemy. And we're running tons of those right now out of New Jersey. We have customers Think, Global, Volvo, Toro, and then our Russian grid, and we have about $15 to $20 million business with Motorola for small batteries that they use for scanners, for scanning devices. We have around 300 people right now, engineers, line managers, assembly people. We get a lot of support from government organizations, IEDC, ESN, and other Representative Donnelly, people like that to help us. I'd like to read this statement because I think it characterizes what several of the people will talk about and are trying to represent. This state is at the crossroads of America, and the ecosystem of support designed to help it become a Silicon Valley for electric vehicles brought us here. What we found when we arrived was a group of qualified people in automotive engineering, all kinds of manufacturing, quality, what have you, just living here in Indiana. A very good supply network established to support Chrysler, GM, Delphi, all the Japanese transplants that are located here. So it's really it is a good location to do business. We have a good educational system. Ivy Tech is a really good example. Purdue, IU, Ball State, and so on really complement that. So we have the ingredients to develop our people to the new technologies of the future. And I think panels like this really help us to spread the word. And there's one thing somebody may ask, what can we do to help? We're a startup business. We're not revenue generated yet. We're capital injection generated, which is very, very tough. And we're on the edge of explosion, but what we really need is demand. We have a good network. There will be investors, and we're probably the only ones sitting on the sideline cheering for $5 gas. Because those guys,
The rest of us are not that good.
it's going to take something to stimulate demand for us. Where we have, we have a matching government grant, we have a loan capacity, we can get up to $300 to $400 million. What we really need, and private equity will help us. What we really need is demand to make this go. Infrastructure, chargers, and so on. But we're right on the edge of taking off. Thank you for letting me know.
Thank you, Congressman. Well, Brian, before we began, I was actually introducing myself to Catherine and telling her that last year my husband and I celebrated a milestone. We celebrated the birth of our first child, Parker James, and in doing so, we traded in our old 1991 car, which my husband calls a rust bucket, and not that his son is, and something that his son is not going to be in. And so we compromised in trying to figure out what we should replace it with, and he said, I want a tank. And so out in the parking lot is a Chrysler Aspen, which is a wonderful vehicle, and I'm very excited to have it. I have to say, though, if I could just give you one recommendation, Brian, on a tweak to that Chrysler Aspen, I would say, what would make it perfect? if it had a Cummins engine in it, definitely. Well, I'm very excited to be here, and I am our Director of Education and Workforce Strategy, and so much of what I'll talk about will focus in that regard. But before I do so, let me tell you a little bit about Cummins. Cummins celebrated sales of $13.2 billion last year. We are an international company, and in a time when the U.S. truck market was the lowest that it has been in 10 years, throughout the recession, we celebrated substantial growth, most of which was international. We sold $3 billion in China, $2 billion in India, and $1.3 billion in Brazil. And I'm sure you're wondering why I'm telling you all about international sales of our company at an Indiana Manufacturing Summit. Well, some of you are probably recognizing why I am, and that is because our company competes globally. And make no mistake, Indiana's workers compete globally as well. And so in this time frame, when we are growing globally, we're able to add jobs in the U.S. and in, of course, our headquartered state here in Indiana. We're down in Columbus, Indiana. Let me give you just a little illustration of how our global market works and how it can benefit the United States, and specifically Indiana. In Jamestown, New York, we make really big, heavy-duty engines. And we make them in New York, and we sell them in Australia. In North Carolina, we make natural gas engines, which we sell in China. In Minnesota, we make generators, power generators, much like the ones Congressman Donnelly talked about. And we sell those in Brazil, as well as other emerging markets that don't yet have a power grid. In fact, several years back when New York's power grid went out, the Statue of Liberty remained lit, and that was thanks to a Cummins power generator. In Indiana, we sell we make fuel systems, which we sell in Sweden. And so we are an international company, and I'd like, if there's one takeaway from my presentation, it's that we need to begin thinking of Indiana's workers as international workers as well. We need those workers to continue to increase their skill set. And the thing that Cummins spends a lot of time focusing on is considering the demands and the needs of our workers to have an ever-growing skill set. Cummins uses a concept, a common language throughout its international employee base called Six Sigma. It's a lean manufacturing product, or a lean manufacturing system, and it's a system of continuous improvement. And Indiana's workers need to be thinking in terms of continuous improvement as we continue to have manufacturing be more and more advanced. Manufacturing, the skill sets needed to complete those jobs becomes more and more advanced. And in the United States this year, we look to grow by about 1,000 workers, many of which will be located inside the state of Indiana in our headquarters in Columbus, and we also made an announcement a little bit south in Seymour, Indiana, for a couple hundred jobs there as well. And we believe that Indiana needs to be thinking about how to improve its workforce. In Indiana, about 15 to 20% of our high school students are not graduating from high school. The Department of Ed gives that stat at over 5,000 high school students each year are dropping out. Out of the ones that 80 to 85% that are graduating, a quarter of them need remediation before continuing their schooling, their technical schooling, or college, or entering the job market. Indiana high school graduation rate places it in the bottom half of the nation. And make no mistake, standing still is losing ground in this global talent pool. And so Cummins has spent a great deal of time focusing on education and workforce training strategies. We believe that we have a responsibility to make our communities better places to live and work. And that in doing so, Cummins as a company will prosper if we can help our communities prosper. In that type of a partnership, we have spent a great deal of time and money through our foundation in helping our communities grow their educational system and their educational attainment. We have a public-private partnership with Connexus, Indiana, here in Indianapolis, where we are working with Connexus on pipeline manufacturing job pathways. We have a public-private partnership down in Columbus, Indiana, with the Community Education Coalition and their Eco-15 initiative and grant in manufacturing and logistics. We believe that by working with government and private industry and other community partners to grow education, our communities can prosper, and it allows us to increase the talent pool by which we're hiring, as well as allows us to recruit internationally. You know, looking at our global presence, our CEO likes to talk about our employee base, and he says, you know, at the point at which our employees look like the UN, we will have done our job. And we have a very diverse set of workers at Cummins, both in Columbus, Indiana, as well as internationally. And so in recruiting, bringing folks to Columbus, Indiana from, say, China or Brazil or India, we first show them where we're located. And then we talk about this partnership and our need to improve and work on and the initiatives we have going in increasing the educational attainment in our communities. And so we're very grateful, Congressman, that you have put together such a great set of panelists to talk about Indiana manufacturing. And we believe that the core base of how we will continue to grow in Indiana manufacturing is through the ever-increasing skill sets of our workers.